The perfect is the enemy of the good. Voltaire.
But what if perfection itself is a weapon? A weapon that seduces your mind with beauty, only to chain your hands in paralysis. You stand at the crossroads of two ancient visions. On one side, Plato, the philosopher who saw perfection as the eternal form, the flawless ideal that reality must aspire toward. On the other, Leonardo da Vinci, the restless genius who sketched, built, dissected, painted, and failed, always chasing progress, never satisfied with completion. Two men. Two minds. Two visions of what drives humanity forward, or traps it forever. Ask yourself this: do you live your life reaching for an impossible ideal? Or do you embrace progress, messy, flawed, yet alive? Plato whispers to you, there is a world beyond this one. A higher truth. A perfect form. You must reach it, or all else is an illusion. But Leonardo smirks in defiance. He sketches on scraps of paper, never finished, never flawless, but always moving. His wings crash in the wind, his machines fail in the mud, his paintings remain unfinished, yet in his failures, progress is born. This is the tension that grips your soul. The perfect versus the possible. The eternal versus the evolving. The marble statue versus the bleeding sketchbook. And the danger is real. Because perfection doesn't just inspire. It suffocates. It tells you nothing is enough. It demands you wait for the flawless plan before taking the first step. It kills action before action can breathe. Carl Jung says, perfection belongs to the gods. The most we can hope for is excellence. Yet you, today, still kneel before perfection like a god. You hesitate. You rewrite. You delay. Because the perfect vision in your head laughs at the flawed reality in your hands. But Leonardo da Vinci never waited. He tested. He stumbled. He dared to touch imperfection and wrestle progress out of it. His notebooks bleed with restless trial and error. He knew that perfection was not a final state but a moving target, always running, always escaping, always pulling you forward. Plato gave us ideals. Leonardo gave us motion. Plato gave us flawless truth. Leonardo gave us messy invention. And here's the paradox that claws at your mind: without Plato, you have no vision of greatness. Without Leonardo, you have no movement toward it. But chained too long to Plato's perfection, you never begin. Chained too long to Leonardo's chaos, you never finish. The question, then, is not about choosing one over the other. It is about survival. Because if you let perfection dominate, progress dies. And if you let chaos reign, vision dissolves. So here is the great question you must wrestle with tonight: do you dare to kill perfection before it kills your progress? Or will you sit frozen, waiting for the flawless moment that will never come? This is the battle of Plato versus Leonardo. The timeless duel between the dream of the perfect and the necessity of the possible. And by the end of this journey, you will see why this battle is not just philosophy. It is your life. Your choices. Your unfinished dreams. This is Legend's legacy. And if you stay with me until the end, you will not only see the clash of two of history's greatest minds. You will uncover the truth that decides whether you rise, or remain chained forever. So tell me, whose voice already whispers louder in your heart? Plato's call for the eternal? Or Leonardo's hunger for the unfinished? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if these battles of ideas ignite something inside you, make sure you subscribe to Legend's Legacy. Because this is just the beginning. Perfection feels holy. That is its power. It disguises paralysis as virtue. Plato taught that beyond this broken, flawed world there exists the realm of forms, eternal, flawless, untouchable. The perfect circle. The perfect justice. The perfect beauty. Everything here, in your hands, is only a shadow of that higher truth. And shadows are never enough. This is where the poison begins. Because when your mind accepts that truth only lives in perfection, every action you take becomes a failure. Every word you speak feels unworthy. Every step forward feels like betrayal of the ideal. This is not just philosophy, it is psychology. The obsession with perfection is a mask for fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of rejection. Fear that your real work, raw and vulnerable, will not survive the light. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why is perfection itself? Then no how will ever be enough. Look deeper. The perfectionist's mind is chained by its own illusions. You convince yourself that waiting is wisdom, that delaying is discipline, that hesitation is high standard. But Jung would tell you, perfection is a spurious ideal which men must abandon in order to find happiness. Your brain itself conspires in this trap. Cognitive psychology names it the all or nothing bias. If it's not flawless, it's worthless. If it's not the best, it's failure. This bias drives you into paralysis, choosing nothing, doing nothing, producing nothing, because the standard is unreachable. And society feeds this disease. From childhood, you're told to get the perfect grade, the perfect career, the perfect body, the perfect love. Culture whispers, only perfection is worthy of admiration. But admiration for what? For the polished surface? For the illusion of flawlessness? Plato's vision echoes in every Instagram filter, every flawless advertisement, every expectation that your life must be a perfect form, or it is not a life at all. But Leonardo da Vinci knew the trick. He knew progress hides in imperfection. He dissected corpses not because it was clean or noble, but because it was messy, ugly, unfinished. He painted faces with shadows, blurred smiles, imperfect lines, because he knew that life itself was not geometry, but motion. Leonardo was haunted by perfection too. You see it in his endless revisions, his unfinished paintings, his obsessive sketches. But here is the difference. He let progress live beside his demons. He allowed the unfinished to breathe. He dared to show the world fragments instead of nothing. Machiavelli once warned, "Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." Leonardo lived this truth. Plato resisted it. And so the hidden problem is revealed. You are torn between a godlike vision and a human reality. Between the eternal form and the flawed sketch. And the deeper tragedy, most people never realize they are trapped. They call it standards. They call it discipline. But it is fear. It is paralysis. It is the unseen weight that crushes generations of thinkers, artists, and dreamers. The mind whispers, "Wait until it is perfect." History whispers back, "Wait too long," and progress dies unborn. This is why perfection kills progress. Not because perfection is evil, but because your devotion to it blinds you to the living motion of growth. The philosopher inside you clings to the ideal. The inventor inside you reaches for the next experiment. One seeks flawless eternity. The other bleeds in the present moment. Which voice will you follow? We now step into the shadows of consequence. What happens to you, your mind, your society, when perfection is allowed to rule? The trap of perfection is silent. It does not shout. It whispers. It tells you, not yet. Not enough. Not worthy. And before you know it, years pass. Dreams decay. Ideas rot in the mind, never daring to touch the world. This is the first consequence, stagnation. History is filled with it. Brilliant minds silenced not by enemies, but by their own standards. How many books unwritten? How many inventions unborn? How many lives unlived, because perfection demanded silence instead of action? You may think you are an observer to this tragedy. But you are not. You are inside it. Every time you delay a project because it isn't flawless, you are Plato's prisoner. Every time you refuse to share your work because it may be judged, you kneel before the god of forms. And society pays the price. Look at Rome. Its philosophers obsessed with ideals of virtue, of flawless order, of eternal empire. But ideals made them rigid. While Rome clung to perfection, chaos crept through its borders. The empire fell not only to barbarians, but to its own inability to evolve. This is the second consequence, rigidity. Perfection creates structures so stiff they cannot bend. And what cannot bend, breaks. In psychology, this is called cognitive rigidity. The refusal to adapt. The inability to accept good enough as a step forward. The obsession with flawlessness creates brittle minds, brittle systems, brittle lives. Contrast this with Leonardo. His machines failed. His paintings cracked. But in failure he adapted. Every broken wing became a lesson for the next sketch. Every imperfect experiment carved a path toward progress. His notebooks are not monuments of perfection. They are living autopsies of trial, error, and rebirth. Perfection denies you this gift. It makes you brittle. It punishes failure instead of transforming it. It teaches you that mistakes are shame, not fuel. And then comes the deepest consequence, self-betrayal. Because perfection is not only an enemy of progress. It is an enemy of the self. You begin to hate your own reflection. The mirror shows flaws, not growth. Your inner voice turns cruel, whispering, "You are not enough. You will never be enough." And slowly you believe it. Arthur Schopenhauer warned, "We seldom think of what we have, but always of what we lack." Perfection feeds this hunger until nothing satisfies you. Not your work. Not your relationships. Not your very life. And what happens when a society believes in perfection too much? It devours itself. Think of the French Revolution. The pursuit of the perfect republic soon demanded purges, guillotines, blood in the streets. Perfection turned ideals into tyranny. The shadow of Plato's flawless form became a nightmare of reality. This is the paradox. The more you worship perfection, the more monstrous your world becomes when it fails to match the dream. The gap between vision and reality becomes unbearable. And in that gap, despair breeds. Perfection makes individuals fragile. It makes societies dangerous. And it makes time itself your enemy. Because while you wait for perfection, the imperfect world keeps moving without you. Da Vinci once said, "Art is never finished, only abandoned." He understood what Plato's disciples could not. That life itself is unfinished. That motion, not completion, is the heartbeat of progress. You must face it now. The unseen consequences of perfection are already in you. The hesitation. The paralysis. The self-betrayal. But the story does not end here. Because every trap has an escape. Every prison has a rebellion. And now, we turn to those who dared to break free. Those who refused to worship perfection. Those who chose progress, raw, imperfect, alive. If perfection is a prison, rebellion begins with one truth: you will never be flawless. And that is your greatest freedom. Leonardo da Vinci lived this rebellion every day. He painted the Mona Lisa for years, never satisfied, never finished. He dissected bodies in secret, not to find the perfect form, but to understand life as it truly was: messy, flawed, complex. He abandoned works that others would have hidden in shame. Why? Because he knew that progress grows out of fragments, not flawless monuments. The first step to breaking free is to kill the illusion of completion. Nothing is ever finished. Not your art. Not your ideas. Not even you. You are not a polished statue. You are a work in motion. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." That acceptance is your rebellion. To accept yourself not as perfect, but as unfinished. To embrace your scars, your failures, your half-built projects as proof that you are alive. But rebellion is not only personal, it is historical. Look at Galileo. The Church demanded perfection in the heavens, circles, flawless order, eternal harmony. But Galileo looked through his telescope and saw chaos, craters, blemishes, rough edges on the moon. He chose truth over perfection, motion over illusion. And though he was silenced, his rebellion cracked the prison walls of dogma. Look at Winston Churchill. A man filled with flaws, drinking, depression, failures in politics. Yet when the world needed him, he did not wait for perfection. He acted, imperfectly but decisively, when hesitation would have destroyed nations. He embodied what Machiavelli warned. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if one wishes to master her, to conquer her by force. The pattern is clear: those who broke free were never flawless. They were flawed, and moving. They dared to act in imperfection. So how do you break free? First, reframe failure. Do not fear it. Feed on it. Every mistake is data, every flaw is feedback. Leonardo's notebooks are testaments to this, thousands of abandoned sketches that birthed centuries of innovation. Second, dismantle the idol of perfection. When your mind whispers, "Not good enough," answer, "Good enough to move." Action is superior to hesitation. A flawed beginning is better than a perfect dream that never breathes. Third, embrace iteration. Progress is not one leap to the heavens. It is 1,000 small steps, each imperfect, each necessary. Thomas Edison said after countless failed experiments, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This is rebellion. Not the absence of failure, but the mastery of it. And finally, build tolerance for imperfection. Train your mind to live with the unfinished. Publish the draft. Show the sketch. Launch the prototype. Allow your work to breathe even before it shines. Because rebellion is not dramatic. It is daily. Every time you choose to act despite imperfection, you defy Plato's ghost. Every time you choose motion over paralysis, you side with Leonardo's restless hand. And here lies the secret: the imperfect rebel changes the world. The perfectionist only dreams of changing it. Your life is not waiting for the perfect moment. It is happening now. Messy, flawed, unfinished. And that is where greatness begins. But what is the ultimate truth? What lies beyond this clash of perfection and progress? There is a final realization, darker, deeper, more liberating than all the rest. A truth that reframes not only your work, but the very meaning of your existence. Perfection is not your enemy. Progress is not your savior. The truth is far more unsettling. They are two faces of the same force, locked in eternal tension. Plato dreamed of eternal forms not because he hated reality, but because he feared its chaos. Leonardo embraced the unfinished not because he despised ideals, but because he knew life never stands still. Perfection and progress are not opposites. They are mirrors, each meaningless without the other. Here is the ultimate realization: you cannot kill perfection, and you cannot abandon progress. You must hold both in your hands, without being enslaved by either. This is the paradox you must learn to live. Vision without motion is fantasy. Motion without vision is chaos. But vision guiding motion, that is creation. When you reach for perfection, use it as a star, something to aim toward, but never touch. When you choose progress, treat it as the ground beneath your feet, messy, unstable, but real. The star gives you direction. The ground gives you movement. Without both, you are lost. Viktor Frankl, who survived the nightmare of the camps, said, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. Plato gives you the why. Leonardo gives you the how. And together they give you the only path worth walking, imperfect progress toward a greater horizon. But the greatest danger is forgetting the balance. Lean too far toward perfection, and your life becomes paralysis. Lean too far toward progress, and your life becomes noise without purpose. The wisdom is not in choosing one, but in refusing to be devoured by either. The final truth is this: perfection is a compass. Progress is a journey. Without the compass, you wander aimlessly. Without the journey, the compass is useless. Your task is not to kill perfection. Your task is to dethrone it. To strip it of its tyranny. To let it inspire you, but never command you. To let it guide, but never choke. And so you stand between Plato and Leonardo, between the marble statue and the bleeding sketchbook. Not as their servant, but as their heir. Because life itself is neither perfect nor finished. It is both vision and motion, form and chaos, star and soil. Marcus Aurelius whispers across centuries. Do not expect the world to be as you wish it to be. See it as it is and use it. And Leonardo echoes. Art is never finished, only abandoned. One urges acceptance of imperfection. The other urges motion in spite of it. Together, they hand you the final key. Your life is not meant to be perfect. It is meant to be lived. So now, the question returns to you. Will you keep kneeling before perfection, paralyzed in worship? Or will you rise with progress, daring to move in imperfection? The answer is not in Plato. It is not in Leonardo. It is in you. This is legend's legacy. The battle of ideas is never just history, it is the war inside your own mind. Share your thoughts below. Do you lean toward Plato's eternal ideal? Or Leonardo's restless progress? And if these legacies stir something deep within you, subscribe to Legend's Legacy, where history's greatest voices remind you of the choices shaping your soul.